Some people don't ask because they need you. They ask to find out how much of you they can take. Have you ever noticed? The more you give, the less you're respected. That is one of the hardest truths to absorb, especially when you are kind, capable, and consistent. Society has spent years telling you that saying yes makes you generous, makes you strong, makes you good. But Stoic philosophy teaches something older, colder, and far more honest. It is not that I am brave enough to endure. I am disciplined enough to refuse. Paraphrase of Stoic principle. Not everything that is asked of you should be given. Marcus Aurelius warned that if you are not vigilant, other people's priorities will quietly colonize your life. Not through force, not through cruelty, but through polite requests, emotional pressure, and the weight of subtle guilt. Today we break down 5 things you must never give away, even when someone asks with a smile. Because true boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are the foundation that holds your entire life together. Time is not just hours on a clock. It is your life, in its rawest, most irreplaceable form. Every minute you give away is a minute you will never recover. And yet this is the first thing people feel entitled to claim. Not aggressively, not rudely, casually, politely, as if your schedule exists by default for their benefit. Can you hop on a quick call? One small favor. It'll only take a minute. These requests rarely sound dangerous. That is exactly why they work. In your work, your family, your social circles, people test boundaries through time. They begin with small interruptions, then they assume availability, then they normalize access, and gradually, your schedule stops being yours. You become reactive instead of deliberate. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Confine yourself to the present. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. He knew that whoever controls your attention eventually controls your direction. When you hand your time over on demand, you silently teach others that their urgency outweighs your intention. This is how quiet resentment is born. You feel drained, distracted, behind in your own life, and you cannot explain why. Because on the surface you were just helping. Underneath, you were slowly trading your goals for someone else's comfort. Being deliberate with your time does not make you cold. It makes you sovereign. Before you answer the next request, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself one quiet question. Does this align with how I have chosen to live today? If the answer is no, you are not required to justify yourself. You owe no long explanation, no emotional cushioning, no guilt-driven yes. A calm, clear boundary is enough. I can't right now. That doesn't work for me. I'll get back to you later. Notice carefully what follows. People who respect you will adjust. People who have been feeding on your lack of boundaries will resist. That resistance is information. When you stop being instantly available, you do not lose the good relationships. You expose the unhealthy ones. Your time is not a favor you owe the world. It is a resource you invest according to your values. Give it deliberately, or others will spend it for you. Not all exhaustion comes from doing. Some of the deepest fatigue comes from absorbing, carrying emotions that were never yours to hold in the first place. Emotional labor is one of the most invisible things people take from you. There is no formal transaction, no clear request. It happens quietly, through long conversations, through cycles of repeated venting, through emotional dependence that disguises itself as closeness. They do not say, "Can I offload my internal chaos onto you?" They say, "Can I talk for a second? I just need someone who gets it. You are the only one I can tell this to." And at first, it feels like trust, like being chosen, like intimacy. But over time, the pattern reveals itself. They talk, you listen, they release, you absorb. And when you need to speak, the space has already closed. Stoicism draws a clear line here. You are responsible for your own inner state. You are not responsible for managing the emotional disorder of others. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. But here is what Seneca also implied. We suffer by proximity. Listening to the same unresolved pain, week after week, you begin to live inside someone else's mental loop. And loops do not move forward. Watch for these signs. You feel drained after talking to them, not lighter. They rarely ask how you are. Their problems never evolve. They feel better. You feel worse. This is not connection. This is extraction. You are allowed to limit emotional access. You can listen without absorbing. You can care without carrying. You can support without surrendering your own stability. The Stoic response is not confrontation. It is measured withdrawal. Shorter conversations, clearer limits, returning responsibility to where it belongs. Sometimes that means saying, I am not in the right space for this right now. Sometimes it means changing the subject. Sometimes it means stepping back entirely. If someone truly respects your energy, they will adapt. If they disappear the moment you stop carrying them, they were never standing beside you. They were standing on you. Compassion without structure leads to burnout. Empathy without limits leads to self-erasure. Protect your calm. It is the result of discipline, and discipline requires boundaries. There is a subtle difference between asking out of care and asking out of control. And if you are not paying close attention, you will miss it every time. Some people do not want to help you decide. They want to be part of the decision because influence feels like power. It usually begins softly. Are you sure that is the right move? I'm only worried about you. If I were you, I'd go a different direction. On the surface, concern. Over time, interference. Slowly, your choices become group discussions. And without realizing it, you begin seeking permission instead of clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that no one else could think, choose, or act on his behalf. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. This was not arrogance, it was responsibility. Delegating your decisions, even emotionally, is a form of self-abandonment. When you give people access to your direction, you give them access to your life. Many people question you more when you begin to grow. They worry more when you begin to change. They advise more when your path no longer resembles theirs. That is not guidance, it is friction with your independence. Unsolicited advice is rarely neutral. It comes wrapped in concern, but underneath, it is discomfort with your autonomy. Stoicism teaches that clarity comes from within, through honest, disciplined reflection, not from external consensus. Seeking endless validation weakens your judgment. It trains you to doubt before you act, and to explain yourself after. And explanation is a trap. The more you justify your choices, the more you invite debate. The more debate you invite, the more authority you surrender. Eventually, you are no longer deciding, you are defending. Epictetus taught that to truly improve, you must be willing to appear foolish to those who are still seeking approval. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Epictetus, Enchiridion. When you stop needing permission, you stop building your life around other people's reactions. There is a difference between counsel and commentary. Counsel comes from those who understand your values, respect your agency, and accept your final word. Commentary comes from those who believe proximity earns them an opinion. One sharpens you, the other dilutes you. Choose who gets access with the same discipline you apply to everything else that matters. The Stoic response is calm, never confrontational. You do not argue. You do not persuade. You answer once, briefly, then move. I've thought it through. This works for me. I'm at peace with my choice. No debate, no defense. Watch what follows. Those who respect you will accept it. Those who relied on your openness to influence you will push harder. That push is your answer. Silence can be one of the most powerful tools available to you. But silence can also be permission. and confusing the two has a cost. Many people misread Stoic philosophy on this. They hear that Stoics value calm, restraint, and emotional discipline, and they translate that into enduring everything without a word. They believe staying silent is maturity, that staying quiet means they are above it. Sometimes they are right, sometimes they are simply afraid. There is a kind of silence that has nothing to do with wisdom. It is the silence that comes from fear, fear of conflict, fear of being disliked, fear of making things awkward. When silence is born from fear, it does not preserve your dignity. It slowly erodes it. Disrespect rarely arrives loudly. It arrives as jokes that go one step too far, comments that quietly diminish you, sarcasm dressed as humor, passive aggression that leaves you questioning whether you even imagined it. And because it is subtle, you hesitate. You tell yourself, it's not worth it. Maybe they didn't mean it. I'll let it slide. That hesitation is the opening. Stoicism does not teach submission. It teaches self-command. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. Epictetus. Disrespect thrives on ambiguity. When nothing is said, the other person fills the silence however they choose. They assume acceptance, or weakness, or indifference. Rarely do they assume restraint, and once a line is crossed without consequence, it is crossed again. The Stoic solution is not explosive confrontation. It is measured clarity. You do not need to raise your voice. You do not need to insult. You do not need to win. You need to name the behavior once, calmly, briefly, without drama. That comment was unnecessary. I don't appreciate being spoken to that way. Let's keep this respectful. That is all. No lecture. No charge. Clear line drawn. Pay attention to how people respond when you hold that line. Those with self-awareness will correct themselves. Those with respect will apologize. Those who relied on your silence will resist, deflect, or mock. That reaction is the information you needed. Stoicism is not about being liked. It is about living in alignment with self-respect. And self-respect sometimes requires speaking. Remember this. Silence chosen from strength is strategy. Silence chosen from fear is surrender. And surrender always carries a price. Peace that depends on your self-erasure is not peace. It is avoidance. True calm comes from knowing you will stand for yourself when the moment demands it, without losing your character in the process. Forgiveness is often praised as strength, and it is when it is applied with wisdom. But unlimited forgiveness is a different thing entirely. Stoicism draws a careful distinction here that most people never examine closely enough. To forgive is deeply human. To keep returning to the same source of harm and calling it loyalty, that is not noble. That is negligence. Some people do not change because they are forgiven. They repeat because they are allowed. It usually sounds sincere at first. I didn't mean it like that. I promise things will be different. I was just going through something, and because you are fair, empathetic, and reasonable, you extend another chance, then another, then one more. Each time telling yourself this will be the moment the pattern finally breaks. But the pattern does not break. It simply resets. Stoicism teaches a simple but uncomfortable truth. Character is not revealed through promises. It is revealed through patterns. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality, but also more than we need to, by refusing to learn from experience. Seneca adapted. When someone shows you who they are consistently, the Stoic response is not hope. It is adjustment, not punishment. Clarity. Unlimited second chances quietly destroy something inside you. Each time you excuse the same behavior, you send a message not just to them, but to yourself. You tell yourself that your limits are flexible, that your pain is negotiable, that your experience matters less than their apology. And slowly, you become smaller around them, not because they are powerful, but because you are always bracing for the same disappointment. The critical question Stoicism asks is this: has the behavior actually changed, Or has the apology simply become more polished? Look at the pattern, not the words. Do their actions align with what they promised? Do they take responsibility without deflection? Or do they reset the cycle? Harm, apology, relief, repeat. That cycle only functions if you keep participating. The Stoic response to repeated harm is not anger. It is withdrawal. Quiet, calm, and final. No announcements, no dramatic exit, no long explanation. Simply distance. Distance is not punishment. It is protection. When you stop granting unlimited access, you regain something essential: stability, clarity, the ability to trust yourself again. Some people only understand value when access is removed. Some people never understand at all. In both cases, your role is the same: step back. You are not obligated to remain in situations that repeatedly violate your values. You are not required to sacrifice your peace to preserve a history, and you do not need to keep reopening the same wound to prove that you are kind. Kindness without discernment is vulnerability without armor. Forgive once, observe, and if the pattern continues, choose distance, without guilt, without announcement, without apology, because the quietest response is sometimes the most self-respecting one. Today, we have walked through 5 things you must never give away. Even when someone asks politely, even when it would be easier to comply, even when the pressure to give feels overwhelming. Not your time on demand, not your emotional energy without return, not access to your decisions, not your silence in the face of disrespect, and not unlimited second chances to people who have shown you their pattern. These are not rules designed to make you cold. They are principles designed to make you clear. Stoicism was never about cutting yourself off from the world. It was about refusing to cut yourself off from your own values in order to be accepted by it. When you protect these 5 areas, you do not lose your humanity. You reclaim your authority. You stop living in reaction. You stop negotiating your worth. And you begin to move through your life with something that cannot be given to you by anyone else: calm, deliberate strength. Now comes the most important part: not watching. Practice. Take one boundary from this video and apply it this week. Pause before the next automatic yes. Shorten the next conversation that drains you. Decide without explaining once. Speak calmly when a line is crossed, or simply step back from a pattern that has already shown you everything you need to know. Small, consistent, real. If this resonated, leave one line below. 3 words. I choose myself. That is not just a comment. It is a commitment, and we will hold each other to it. Thank you for being here, for thinking deeply, for choosing growth over comfort, again and again. If you want to go further on Stoic principles, boundaries, discipline, and unshakable inner strength, subscribe and walk this path with us. Until next time, move forward calmly, move forward firmly, move forward without apology.